The Absence. Part 1. The Disappearance. The last thing Maya said to him was, "I wish you would just disappear." She remembered it with perfect clarity, the way the words had left her mouth like shards of glass, sharp and deliberate. They'd been standing in his apartment, rain streaking the windows behind him, and Ethan's face had done that thing it always did when she heard him. A brief flinch, then a careful neutrality that was somehow worse than any reaction. "Fine," he'd said quietly, picking up his keys from the counter. "I'll give you some space." And then he'd left. That was 3 days ago. Now, Maya sat in that same apartment. She had a key, had always had a key, staring at Ethan's phone sitting on the kitchen counter where he'd left it. His wallet was there too. His laptop open on the coffee table, the screen dark but the power lights still blinking green. Everything was here. Everything except Ethan. She'd called the police that morning, after spending the previous 2 days convincing herself he was just teaching her a lesson, making her worry, proving a point about taking him for granted. The officer who took her report had been professionally sympathetic, but ultimately dismissive. 26-year-old male left voluntarily after a disagreement? Ma'am, he probably just needed some time to cool off. Has he contacted any friends or family? No, Maya had said, and he left his phone. Who leaves their phone? People who want to disconnect, the officer replied, and there was something in his tone that suggested he thought Ethan had made a reasonable choice. Now, alone in the apartment as afternoon faded to evening, Maya moved through the space like a ghost haunting her own life. She touched things that belonged to Ethan, searching for clues to something she couldn't name. His favorite mug in the sink, still bearing the ring of yesterday's coffee. The book on his nightstand, a bookmark placed 3/4 through. His running shoes by the door, the ones he wore every morning without fail. Everything suggested a man who intended to return. Everything except his absence. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Simone. "Any news?" She typed back, "Nothing. It's like he vanished." The 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, "Come stay with me tonight. You shouldn't be alone." But Maya didn't want to leave. Leaving felt like giving up, like accepting that Ethan might not come back. So she stayed, curled up on his couch, breathing in the faint scent of his cologne that still clung to the cushions, and tried to remember exactly what they'd been fighting about. The problem was, she couldn't. It had started as something small. It always did with them. She'd made a comment about his mother, or maybe he'd made a comment about her work schedule. The details were fuzzy, obscured by the escalation that had followed. Voices raised, old grievances resurrected, the familiar script of their arguments playing out like a well-rehearsed performance. Except this time, something had been different. Ethan had been quieter than usual, less defensive. He just stood there, taking her words, his expression growing more distant with each accusation. And when she'd finally said it, that terrible wish she couldn't take back, he'd looked at her with something that might have been relief. "Fine," he'd said, so quietly she'd almost missed it. "I'll give you some space." She'd expected him to slam the door. He always slammed the door. But he'd closed it gently, carefully, like he was putting something fragile to rest. Maya pulled out her phone and scrolled through their text history. The messages told the story of their relationship in reverse. Recent days marked by increasing tension. Last week's playful exchanges. Weeks before that, filled with the mundane coordination of shared lives. "Can you pick up milk? Running late. Start without me. Love you." That last one was from 10 days ago. She'd said it casually, signing off a message about dinner plans. He'd responded with a heart emoji. When had they stopped saying it? Day 4 brought Detective Sarah Chen. She appeared at Ethan's apartment mid-morning, her badge already out when Maya opened the door. She was younger than Maya expected, probably in her mid-30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything in the room before she'd even fully entered. Ms. Rivera, I'm following up on your missing persons report. Mind if I ask you some questions? Maya let her in, grateful and terrified in equal measure. Someone taking this seriously meant it was real. It meant Ethan wasn't just teaching her a lesson. Detective Chen settled into the armchair, Ethan's chair, the one he always sat in while reading, and pulled out a notebook. Tell me about the argument. Maya recounted what she could remember, editing out the cruelest parts, trying to make their relationship sound healthier than it was. But Detective Chen had a way of looking at her that suggested she could see through every omission. How long have you been together? 3 years. Living together? No, I have my own place across town, but I'm here a lot. Or I was. Was this a typical argument for you two? Maya hesitated. Define typical. Did you fight often? Was there a pattern to the disagreements? The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. Maya found herself thinking about all the times she'd started arguments over nothing, pushing Ethan away just to see if he'd come back, testing him, her therapist had called it, back when Maya used to go to therapy. We had our issues, Maya said carefully, like any couple. Did Mr. Torres ever express thoughts of self-harm, depression, suicidal ideation? The words hit Maya like a fist. No, God, no. Ethan wouldn't. He's not. But even as she protested, something flickered in her memory. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing, Ethan had said. Like I'm becoming less real every day. She'd told him he was being dramatic, had rolled over and gone to sleep. Miss Rivera? Maya blinked. He never said anything like that. He's happy. He has a good job, friends, a whole life. What about family? His mother lives in Arizona. They're not close. His father passed away when he was young. Detective Chen made notes, her pen scratching across the paper with metronomic consistency. And you said he left his phone and wallet. Credit cards? All here. I checked. Bank accounts. I don't have access to his accounts. But you have a key to his apartment? It wasn't quite a question. Maya shifted uncomfortably. He gave it to me after we'd been dating 6 months, for emergencies. Was this an emergency? Maya met the detective's eyes. He's been gone for 4 days. Yes, I think this qualifies. Detective Chen's expression didn't change, but something softened slightly. I'm not judging you, Miss Rivera. I'm trying to understand the situation. In cases like these, the first 48 hours are critical. We're past that now, which means we need to consider all possibilities. What possibilities? That Mr. Torres left voluntarily and doesn't want to be found. That something happened to him. That he's in trouble but alive. Or, she paused, that we're looking at something more serious. The unspoken words hung between them. Foul play. You don't think Maya couldn't even finish the sentence. I don't think anything yet, Detective Chen said. I'm gathering information, but I need you to be honest with me, completely honest. Was there anything else about that argument? Anything physical? No, Maya said firmly. It was just words. Always just words. And after he left, did you try to contact him? Not right away. I thought he'd come back after a few hours, the way he always does. But then when he didn't, Maya's voice caught. I called, texted. His phone was here the whole time. Did you notice anything unusual in the days before he disappeared? Changes in behavior, mood, routine? Maya thought back, trying to focus on Ethan rather than herself for once. Had he been different? Quieter, maybe? More withdrawn? He'd been spending more time alone in the evenings, claiming work stress, but now Maya wondered if he'd been avoiding her. He seemed tired, she said slowly, distant, but I thought that was just us, the way things had been lately. And how had things been? Maya looked down at her hands, strained. After Detective Chen left, Maya couldn't stay in the apartment anymore. She drove to her own place, A small one-bedroom on the other side of the city that suddenly felt foreign, like she'd been gone for years instead of days. Her phone rang almost immediately. Simone. "The police came to see me," her friend said without preamble. "They're asking questions about you and Ethan." "What kind of questions?" "About your relationship? Whether I'd noticed anything concerning." "Maya," Simone's voice dropped, "what aren't you telling me?" "Nothing. I don't know what you mean." The detective asked if I'd ever witnessed you and Ethan in conflict. She used those exact words, witnessed conflict, like she was building a case. Maya's stomach turned. She thinks I did something to him. Did you? The question was so absurd that Maya almost laughed. Except Simone's tone was serious, careful, and Maya realized with horror that even her best friend wasn't sure. "Of course not. Sim, you know me. I know you love him. I also know you can be intense. You push people, Maya. You always have. That doesn't mean Maya couldn't say it, couldn't make it real by speaking the accusation aloud. "I'm not saying you hurt him," Simone said quickly. "I'm just saying the police are going to look at every angle, and the girlfriend is always the first angle." After they hung up, Maya sat in her silent apartment and tried to remember what she'd been doing in the hours after Ethan left. She'd stayed in his apartment that night, she was sure of that, had fallen asleep on the couch waiting for him to return, but the next day was blurry. Had she gone to work? She'd meant to, but everything felt distant now, like watching herself through frosted glass. She opened her laptop and checked her work email. There were messages from colleagues asking if she was okay, if she was coming in. Her boss had sent a concerned note. "Take all the time you need. We're here if you want to talk." Maya had no memory of calling in, no memory of the entire day. She stood abruptly, pacing to the window. This was just stress, lack of sleep, the disorientation of trauma. She was forgetting minor details because her mind was focused on the important thing, finding Ethan. But a small voice whispered, "Or because there's something you don't want to remember." Part 2. The Search. Day 5 began with Maya creating a missing persons flyer. She used her favorite photo of Ethan, taken last summer at the beach, his smile genuine and unguarded in a way it rarely was anymore. Under the photo, she listed his details. Missing, Ethan Torres, 26, last seen Tuesday evening near Oak Street, 6'1", brown hair, brown eyes. If you have any information, please contact. She'd made 200 copies at the print shop, the clerk looking at her with undisguised pity. Now she moved through the neighborhood, taping them to telephone poles and shop windows, each placement feeling both necessary and futile. People glanced at the flyers with that particular expression reserved for other people's tragedies, a mix of sympathy and relief that it wasn't happening to them. "That's so terrible," a woman said, pausing as Maya taped a flyer to a coffee shop bulletin board. "How long has he been missing?" 5 days. "And the police don't have any leads?" "They're investigating." Maya didn't mention that the investigations seemed to be focusing more on her than on finding Ethan. The woman shook her head, making sympathetic noises. "I hope they find him. You must be going through hell." "You have no idea," Maya thought. She'd just finished posting a flyer outside Ethan's gym when her phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello? Is this Maya Rivera?" A male voice, unfamiliar. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is David Chen. I'm Ethan's tow worker. The police came by the office asking questions, and I think I should talk to you." Maya's heart raced. "Do you know where he is?" "No, but I might know what happened. Can we meet somewhere?" "Not over the phone." 20 minutes later, Maya sat across from David in a quiet corner of a chain restaurant, watching him nervously shred his napkin into strips. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble," he began. "Just tell me what you know." David took a breath. "Ethan's been different the last few months. Quieter, more withdrawn. A few of us noticed, but figured it was personal stuff, you know? We didn't want to pry. Okay. But last week, he came into work with these bruises on his arm, like someone had grabbed him. When I asked about it, he said he'd fallen while running. But Maya, David looked up, his expression uncomfortable. They were in the shape of finger marks. We all saw it. Maya felt the room tilt. Are you suggesting I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just telling you what I saw. And what he said. What did he say? That everything was fine, that he was handling it, but he looked scared, Maya, really scared. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that she would never hurt Ethan, that whatever David had seen had a reasonable explanation. But the words stuck in her throat because she was remembering now, a moment from last week when they'd been arguing, when she'd reached for his arm to stop him from walking away, when her fingers had closed around his wrist harder than she'd intended. I didn't mean to, she'd said, seeing the red marks appear. It's fine, Ethan had replied, pulling away. You didn't hurt me. But he'd worn long sleeves for days after. I should go, Maya said, standing abruptly. Wait, David stood too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I just thought you should know what people are saying. What are they saying? He hesitated. That maybe Ethan had a reason to leave. Maya drove without destination, her mind spinning. She hadn't hurt Ethan. She loved him. Yes, they fought. Yes, things had been difficult, but she would never. Her phone rang again. Detective Chen. Ms. Rivera, I need you to come down to the station. We have some questions. Am I under arrest? No, but we've received some concerning information, and I'd like to clear it up. It would be better if you came voluntarily. The police station was exactly as bleak as Maya expected. Detective Chen led her to an interview room, not an interrogation room, Chen emphasized, though Maya noted the cameras in the corners and the one-way mirror on the wall. We've been looking into Mr. Torres's recent activity, Chen began, placing a folder on the table between them. His co-workers mentioned some incidents. Friends reported that he'd been increasingly isolated, and we found something interesting on his laptop. She opened the folder and slid out a printed document. Maya recognized it immediately, a journal entry from Ethan's computer. I don't know how much longer I can do this. Every day I feel myself getting smaller, like I'm being erased bit by bit. She doesn't see it, or maybe she does and doesn't care. I tried to talk to her about it, but she said I was being overly sensitive. Maybe I am. Maybe this is all in my head. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm disappearing, and one day I won't exist at all. The words were dated 2 weeks before his disappearance. Maya's hands shook as she read them. This doesn't mean anything. It means Mr. Torres was in distress, combined with the physical marks his coworkers noticed and the fact that you were the last person to see him after what you describe as a heated argument. I didn't hurt him, Maya insisted. I would never. Miss Rivera, in cases of domestic, this wasn't domestic anything. We had a fight. I said something I regret, and he left. That's all. Then where is he? The question hung in the air. Maya had no answer. Detective Chin leaned forward. I want to believe you, but I need you to help me understand. Walk me through that night again. Every detail, no matter how small. So Maya did. She recounted the argument, forcing herself to remember the cruel things she'd said, the way Ethan had looked at her, the terrible wish she'd made. She told Chen about falling asleep on his couch, waking up expecting him to be there, the growing panic as hours turned into days. Did you leave his apartment at all that night? No, I stayed there until morning. Can anyone verify that? No, I was alone. Chen made notes. And you're certain he left voluntarily? He walked out on his own? Yes, I told you. Because we've checked traffic cameras, Miss Rivera, and there's no footage of Mr. Torres leaving his building that night. Maya felt the floor drop away. That's impossible. He left. I watched him take his keys and walk out. The building has one entrance. Every person who comes and goes is captured on camera. We have you entering at 6:47 p.m., but there's no recording of Mr. Torres leaving. Then your cameras are wrong, or there's another exit. There isn't. We verified with building management. Maya stood, her chair scraping back. What are you saying? Detective Chen's expression remained neutral, but Maya could see the calculation in her eyes. I'm saying we need to consider the possibility that Mr. Torres never left the building. Part 3. The Unraveling. They searched Ethan's apartment. Maya watched from the doorway as officers in gloves moved through the space, photographing, collecting, examining. They took the sheets from his bed, swabbed surfaces, removed his laptop and papers. They checked the closets, the bathroom, under the furniture. They found nothing. We'd like to search your apartment as well, Detective Chen said. Do I have a choice? You can refuse, but fine, search it. Because Maya had nothing to hide. She was innocent. Ethan had left, and wherever he'd gone, whatever had happened, it had nothing to do with her. Except the cameras said otherwise. That night, unable to sleep, Maya broke into Ethan's email. She knew his password. He'd given it to her once when he'd been traveling and needed her to forward something. She'd promised never to use it otherwise, but desperate times required desperate measures. His inbox was mundane, work emails, newsletters, spam. But in the sent folder, she found something dated the morning of their argument. The email was to his mother, titled, "Important, please read." Mom, I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago. I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for a while now. I've been in a relationship that's slowly destroying me, but I can't seem to leave. Every time I try, I convince myself it will get better, that I'm overreacting, that I love her enough to make it work. But tonight, I'm going to end it. I'm going to tell her it's over, and I'm going to stick to it this time. I know you'll be proud of me for finally standing up for myself. I know Dad would be too. I'll call you tomorrow to talk more. I love you. E. Maya read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper than the last. He'd planned to break up with her. That's what the argument had been about, not whatever petty thing had started it, but Ethan finally gathering the courage to leave. And she'd said she wished he would disappear. The email sat in his sent folder, delivered but apparently never discussed. Maya checked his phone records. He'd never called his mother the next day, never called anyone, because he'd disappeared. She opened a new browser tab and searched for Ethan's mother's contact information, found a phone number after some digging. Her hand hovered over her phone. What would she even say? Your son is missing, and I might be the reason why? Before she could decide, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know where Ethan is. Maya's heart stopped. She typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, meet me at Riverside Park, East Entrance. Come alone. Tell me who you are. You want to find him or not? Maya looked at the time, 11:47 p.m. Meeting a stranger in a dark park in the middle of the night was objectively insane. But the alternative was sitting here drowning in guilt and uncertainty. She grabbed her keys. Riverside Park was empty when she arrived, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pathways. Maya walked toward the east entrance, every horror movie she'd ever seen playing in her head. Maya Rivera? She spun around. A woman emerged from the shadows, mid-40s, dressed in jeans and a dark jacket, her expression unreadable. Who are you? My name is Dr. Lauren Webb. I'm a therapist. Ethan was my patient. Maya's confusion must have shown because Dr. Webb continued, He'd been seeing me for 6 months. You didn't know? No. I thought as much. He was very private about it. Dr. Webb gestured to a nearby bench. Can we sit? What I have to tell you is complicated. They sat. The park was silent, except for distant traffic and the rustle of leaves. "I shouldn't be telling you any of this," Dr. Webb began. "Patient confidentiality and all that. But when I saw the missing persons report, when I heard the police were questioning you, I realized I might be the only person who can shed light on what really happened. So tell me." Ethan came to me because he was experiencing dissociative episodes, moments where he felt disconnected from reality, like he wasn't really present in his own life. He described it as feeling like he was fading away. Maya remembered the journal entry, "I'm disappearing." He traced it back to his relationship with you, Dr. Webb continued. The constant conflict, the emotional ups and downs, the feeling that he could never do enough or be enough. He loved you, but being with you was destroying his sense of self. Each word was a knife, but Maya forced herself to listen. In our last session, which was the day he disappeared, Ethan told me he was finally ready to end things. He'd written an email to his mother, made a plan for how to move forward. He seemed more hopeful than I'd seen him in months. Then what happened? Dr. Webb met her eyes. "That's what I've been trying to figure out. Because someone who's finally found the courage to change their life doesn't usually vanish immediately afterward. Unless what? Unless something stopped him from following through." Maya felt sick. "You think I stopped him? I think you should ask yourself what you remember about that night. Really remember. Because in my experience, when people block out memories, it's usually because those memories are protecting them from something they're not ready to face." Maya drove home in a daze, Dr. Webb's words echoing in her head. Ask yourself what you really remember. The truth was, there were gaps, moments that felt fuzzy, like viewing them through gauze. She remembered the beginning of the argument, remembered Ethan standing by the door with his keys, remembered him leaving. But did she? She pulled into her parking space and sat in the dark car, forcing herself to think, to really think. Ethan standing by the door, keys in hand, her saying those terrible words, "I wish you would just disappear." And then what? Had he opened the door? She could see him reaching for it, could see his hand on the knob. But the next clear memory was of lying on the couch, the apartment dark, the rain still falling outside. Hours had passed. What had happened in those hours? Maya stumbled up to her apartment, her hands shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the lock. Once inside, she went straight to the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection looked haunted. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, skin pale. She barely recognized herself. "You're losing it," she thought. "This is what a breakdown looks like." But what if it wasn't a breakdown? What if there was something she'd blocked out, something her mind was protecting her from? She needed help, real help, not just Detective Chen's suspicious questions or Dr. Webb's careful revelations. Maya pulled out her phone and called Simone. "Maya, it's 1 a.m. I need you to tell me the truth about me and Ethan, about what you've seen." A long pause. "Maya, please, Sim, I need to know." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "Okay, but you're not going to like it." They met at an all-night diner, the harsh fluorescent lights making everything feel surreal. Simone looked exhausted, worried, and something else Maya couldn't quite identify. Afraid, maybe? "Talk to me," Maya said. Simone wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "You and Ethan, it's not been healthy for a long time. You know that, right? Define healthy." "The fights, Maya, the constant drama, the way you'd pick at him, testing him, pushing him until he'd snap back. And then you'd act like he was the unreasonable one. He could have left any time. Could he? Because from where I sat, it seemed like every time he tried to pull away, you'd do something to pull him back in. Love bombing, making promises, being the perfect girlfriend for a week, and then it would start all over again. Maya wanted to argue, but the words dried up in her throat because Simone was right. She'd done exactly that. Multiple times. Why didn't you say anything before? I tried. You didn't want to hear it. And Ethan, Simone hesitated. Ethan asked me not to interfere. He said he could handle it, that he loved you, that things would get better. But they didn't. No, they got worse. Maya stared at her cold coffee. Do you think I hurt him? Physically? No. But emotionally? Simone reached across the table, covering Maya's hand with hers. Hun, I think you were hurting each other, and I think Ethan finally hit his breaking point. The police think I did something to him. The cameras show me entering his building, but don't show him leaving. How is that possible? Simone bit her lip. What if he never left? He did. I saw him. What if you think you saw him leave, but you didn't? Maya, have you considered that maybe your mind is playing tricks on you? That the stress and guilt are distorting your memories? I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were. But trauma does things to memory. You could have a genuine false recollection of events. Or, Maya said slowly, something really did happen, and I'm blocking it out. The possibility hung between them. Terrible and unavoidable. Part 4. The Truth. Day 7 brought a breakthrough in the investigation. Detective Chen called Maya at dawn. We found something in your apartment. What? Can you come to the station? I'd rather discuss this in person. When Maya arrived, Chen led her to the same interview room as before. This time, there was a man with her. Older, graying, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much. This is Detective Martinez, Chen said. He's been helping with the investigation. Martinez didn't waste time. Ms. Rivera, during our search of your apartment, we found blood. In your bathroom, in the grout around the tub. It had been cleaned, but not thoroughly enough. Maya's vision blurred. That's impossible. We're running DNA analysis, but given the location and the timing, we have reason to believe it may be Mr. Torres's blood. No, I don't. I didn't. We also found this. Chen slid a plastic evidence bag across the table. Inside was a necklace, a thin gold chain with a small pendant. Maya recognized it immediately. Ethan's. He never took it off. It was under your bathroom sink, Chen said, behind the pipes, like someone had hidden it there. Maya couldn't breathe, couldn't think. None of this made sense. Ms. Rivera, I need you to tell me what really happened that night. I don't know, Maya's voice cracked. I swear to you, I don't know. I remember us arguing, I remember him leaving, and then nothing. It's blank, like someone edited out a scene from a movie. The detectives exchanged glances. Martinez leaned forward. Have you ever experienced blackouts before? Memory loss? No, never. Has anyone suggested you might have dissociative issues? Psychological problems? Maya laughed, a harsh sound. You mean like my missing boyfriend who felt like he was disappearing? Like that kind of psychological problem? Ms. Rivera, maybe we were both crazy. Maybe that's what happens when two broken people try to love each other. Maybe we just broke each other. Chen's expression softened slightly. Maya, I want to help you, but I can only do that if you're honest with me. If something happened, if there was an accident, if things got out of hand, telling us now is your best option. I didn't hurt him, Maya whispered. But even she could hear the uncertainty in her voice, because how could she know for sure when she couldn't remember? They took her in for further questioning. Not an arrest, Jen insisted, though Maya noted they read her rights anyway. Just a precaution. She called a lawyer, a woman named Jennifer Park, who specialized in criminal defense and had shrewd eyes that missed nothing. Don't say anything else, Park advised immediately. Not a word until I've reviewed everything. So Maya sat in the interview room, silent, while Park and the detectives conferred in low voices outside. She stared at the one-way mirror, wondering who was watching from the other side. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "You're looking in the wrong place." Maya's hands shook as she typed. "Who are you?" "Check the basement." "What basement?" "Ethan's building, storage unit 12B. His name is on the lease, but you have keys. Check it." The door opened. Park entered, looking grim. "They're letting you go for now, but you're not to leave the city. And Maya, we need to talk about your memory gaps. If this goes to trial, that's going to be a major issue. I'm telling the truth. I believe you. But truth and memory aren't always the same thing." Maya went straight to Ethan's building. She'd completely forgotten about the storage unit. Ethan had rented it a year ago when his apartment had gotten too cluttered. She'd helped him move boxes down there, hadn't thought about it since. The basement was exactly as grim as she remembered. Concrete walls, dim lighting, the smell of mildew and old cardboard. Maya found Unit 12B and used Ethan's keys to open it. Inside were the usual storage unit contents: boxes of books, old furniture, seasonal decorations. But in the back corner, partially hidden by a stack of plastic bins, was something that didn't belong. A sleeping bag, a cooler, a camping lantern, and a notebook. Maya picked it up with trembling hands. Opened it. Ethan's handwriting filled the pages. Day 1. I did it. I actually did it. After 3 years of trying to find the courage, I finally walked away. Maya thinks I left the building that night, but I didn't. I couldn't. I knew if I went anywhere she could find me, she'd convince me to come back. She always does. So I'm hiding here, in my own storage unit, like a scared child. But maybe that's what I am. Someone too scared to face confrontation, too weak to end things properly. I just need a few days to clear my head, to strengthen my resolve. Then I'll reach out to Mom, figure out next steps. The cameras won't show me leaving, because I haven't left. I've been here the whole time. Maya's hands shook as she flipped through pages. Days of entries, chronicling Ethan's time in hiding, his fear that Maya would find him, his guilt over deceiving her, his growing resolve to start fresh. The last entry was dated yesterday. Day 6. I heard from a friend that Maya filed a missing persons report. The police are investigating. She must be terrified, and part of me feels guilty about that. But I also feel free. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I can breathe. I'm leaving tonight. Mom sent money for a bus ticket. I'm going to Arizona, starting over. This is my disappearance, not the dramatic vanishing everyone thinks, but a deliberate choice to save myself. If Maya somehow finds this before I leave, I want her to know. I don't hate her. I never could. But loving her was killing me, and I finally chose myself. I hope someday she understands. I hope someday she forgives herself too. S. Maya's legs gave out. She sank to the cold concrete floor. The notebook clutched to her chest, and something inside her shattered completely. He was alive. Ethan was alive, and he'd been here the whole time, hiding from her, hiding because he was that desperate to escape. Because she'd made him feel so trapped that living in a storage unit seemed preferable to facing her. The evidence in her apartment, the blood, the necklace, none of it made sense. Unless... Maya's mind raced. The blood in her bathroom. When had she last been home before the police searched? She tried to remember, but couldn't. The days had blurred together. But someone had access to her apartment. Someone who knew where she lived, who could have planted evidence. The texts, the mysterious meeting in the park, Dr. Webb appearing out of nowhere with information that couldn't legally be shared. Someone had been orchestrating this. Maya pulled out her phone and called Detective Chen. I found him. I found where he's been hiding. Storage Unit 12B in his building's basement. A pause. Will said officers immediately. Don't touch anything else. Detective, the evidence in my apartment. I think someone planted it. Someone who wanted me to look responsible for. Miss Rivera, stay where you are. But Maya was already moving, her mind connecting pieces that had been there all along. The unknown texts, the convenient information, the timing of everything. She scrolled through her recent calls and found the number Dr. Webb had used to contact her. Called it back. It rang twice before a voice answered, but it wasn't Dr. Webb. Hello, Maya. Male. Familiar. Maya's heart stopped. David? I was wondering when you'd figure it out. David Chen, Ethan's coworker. The one who'd told her about the bruises, who'd painted her as someone dangerous. What did you do? What Ethan couldn't do himself. I protected him from you. Maya's mind spun. The blood in my apartment? The necklace? That was you? Ethan told me everything. About the fights, the manipulation, the way you wouldn't let him leave. Someone had to help him disappear properly. Someone had to make sure you wouldn't follow. By framing me for his murder? By giving you a reason to let him go. David's voice was calm, rational, like he was explaining something obvious. The police investigation, the evidence, it was all meant to keep you occupied, to make you too worried about saving yourself to go looking for him. But he left a notebook. He documented everything. Yes, well, I didn't anticipate that. Ethan always was too honest for his own good. A pause. It doesn't matter now. He's gone. He left for Arizona this morning. He's safe, and that's all that matters. You broke into my apartment. You planted evidence. You impersonated a therapist. I did what needed to be done. And you know what? The police believed it. Your own friends believed it. Because deep down, Maya, everyone knows what you are. The line went dead. Maya stood in the basement, surrounded by the remnants of Ethan's hidden life, and felt something crack open inside her. Not her sanity, she'd questioned that enough over the past week, but something deeper, a recognition of truth she'd been avoiding. David was right, not about the methods, not about the deception, but about the core of it. Everyone had believed she could have hurt Ethan because part of her had been hurting him all along. Not physically, but slowly, steadily, eroding him until he felt he had to disappear to survive. She'd driven the man she loved to hide in a storage unit. Part 5. The Reckoning. The police arrested David Chen within hours. He confessed immediately, almost proudly, explaining how he'd befriended Ethan at work, how he'd recognized the signs of someone in an unhealthy relationship, how he'd helped plan the disappearance, the storage unit, the fake texts from burner phones, the elaborate staging of evidence designed to keep Maya under suspicion while Ethan made his escape. He never asked me to do any of it, David told detectives. The evidence, the manipulation, that was all me. I just wanted to give him time, to make sure she couldn't follow him. By making her think she might have killed him? Detective Chen asked. By making her face what she'd become. Maya watched from behind the one-way glass as David gave his statement, calm and unrepentant. Jennifer Park stood beside her. He's going to jail, Park said. Breaking and entering, evidence tampering, harassment at minimum, possibly more. He thought he was helping, Maya said quietly. He terrorized you, made you question your sanity. That's not help, that's revenge. But was it? David had looked at Ethan, really looked at him, and seen someone who needed saving, just like Dr. Webb probably had, if she even existed, just like Ethan's coworkers had when they saw the finger marks on his arm. Everyone had seen it, except Maya. Or maybe she had seen it and chosen to ignore it. Detective Chen cleared Maya of all suspicion that afternoon. I owe you an apology, Chen said, looking genuinely remorseful. We should have verified the evidence more thoroughly before bringing you in for questioning. You were doing your job, Maya replied, and honestly, I understand why you suspected me. I would have too. Mr. Torres called from Arizona. He wanted me to tell you he's sorry for the way things happened, but he needed to go. I know. Maya's voice was steady, though her heart felt like lead. Did he say anything else? Chen hesitated. He asked me to tell you that he hopes you find peace, that you get help, that you learn to love yourself the way you needed him to love you. The words hit like a physical blow, but Maya nodded. Thank you. Simone picked her up from the police station. They drove in silence for a while before Simone said, You okay? No, Maya answered honestly, but I will be. What are you going to do? Maya looked out the window at the city passing by, the same streets she'd walked for years, now feeling completely foreign. I'm going to find a therapist, a real one, and I'm going to figure out why I did what I did, why I pushed someone I loved until they had to hide from me. That's good. That's really good, Maya. And I'm going to stop checking my phone every 5 minutes, hoping Ethan will call, because he won't, and he shouldn't. Simone reached over and squeezed her hand. For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. Brave would have been recognizing the problem before it got this far. Brave is recognizing it at all. That night, alone in her apartment, which no longer felt contaminated by false evidence, Maya opened the leather journal Julian had made for Emma in the story that felt like a lifetime ago, though she'd read it just days before. She began to write, not for publication, not for anyone else to read, just for herself, an accounting of the relationship she'd destroyed, the patterns she needed to break, the person she needed to stop being. She wrote about the first time she and Ethan had fought and how she'd felt a rush of power when he'd apologized first, how that rush had become addictive, how she'd started picking fights just to feel that power again, to reassure herself that he wouldn't leave, that she controlled the narrative of their relationship. She wrote about the way he'd started to fade. She could see it now, looking back, how his laugh had become quieter, how his opinions had become softer, more accommodating, how he'd started asking permission for things that shouldn't require permission. She wrote about the moment she'd grabbed his wrist too hard and seen the marks appear, and how she'd told herself it was an accident, even though some dark part of her had wanted to see those marks, wanted him to carry a visible reminder that he belonged to her. The words poured out, ugly and honest, and with each sentence, Maya felt something loosening in her chest. Not absolution, she didn't deserve that, but acknowledgement. The first step toward change. 2 weeks later, Maya started therapy. Her therapist, Dr. Patricia Reeves, was nothing like the fictional Dr. Webb that David had invented. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and a direct manner that made it impossible to hide behind excuses. Tell me why you're here, Dr. Reeves said in their first session. My boyfriend disappeared because I made his life unbearable, Maya said. No point in sugarcoating it. That's one narrative. What's another? That I have patterns of behavior that hurt people I care about, that I need to understand why I do that before I hurt anyone else. Better. Now tell me about your childhood. Maya had known this was coming, had dreaded it, but she forced herself to talk. About her parents' difficult marriage, about watching her mother use affection as a weapon, withdrawing love when Maya's father displeased her, showering him with attention when he complied. About learning that love was something you controlled, something you wielded for power. And you replicated that pattern with Ethan, Dr. Reeves said. Yes, because it's what you knew, what felt familiar. I suppose. Maya, understanding where patterns come from doesn't excuse them, but it does help us interrupt them. Are you ready to do that work? Maya thought about Ethan in Arizona, starting a new life, finally free of her. She thought about the storage unit where he'd hidden, choosing concrete and loneliness over her presence. She thought about David Chen, so convinced of her toxicity that he'd committed crimes to help someone escape her. Yes, she said, I'm ready. 3 months passed. Maya threw herself into therapy with the same intensity she'd once directed toward her relationship with Ethan. She learned about attachment styles, about trauma responses, about the difference between love and control. She joined a support group for people working to change unhealthy relationship patterns. She didn't date, didn't even consider it. Some nights she felt crushingly lonely, but she reminded herself that loneliness was better than inflicting her unhealed self on someone else. Simone checked in regularly, proud of the work Maya was doing, but also cautious. Change takes time, she reminded Maya. Don't rush it. I know, but Sim, I'm actually starting to understand something. What's that? I thought losing Ethan was the worst thing that could happen, but staying the person I was, that would have been worse. 4 months after Ethan's disappearance, Maya received an email. The subject line was simple: hello. She opened it with trembling hands. Maya, I've been in Arizona for several months now. I'm working at my uncle's restaurant, living in a small apartment, seeing a therapist twice a week. It's quiet here, peaceful. I'm starting to remember who I was before I became someone who needed to hide. Detective Chen told me about David, about what he did. I'm sorry you went through that. I never asked him to plant evidence or terrorize you. I only asked him to help me get away cleanly. What he did went far beyond that, and it wasn't fair to you. But I want to be honest. I'm not sorry I left. I needed to. And I need you to understand that I'm not coming back. Not to you, not to that relationship. It nearly destroyed me, and I'm only now beginning to rebuild. I've spent a lot of time in therapy talking about us. My therapist asked me if I thought you loved me, and I said yes. Then she asked if I thought your love was healthy, and I realized I didn't know how to answer. Because you did love me, I never doubted that, but you also needed me in a way that was suffocating. You needed me to prove your worth, to validate your existence, to be the thing you could control when everything else felt chaotic. And I let you. That's my responsibility to own. I stayed far longer than I should have. I made myself smaller to accommodate your needs. I convinced myself that if I just loved you enough, things would change. But love doesn't change people who don't want to change, and I'm finally learning that I can't save someone who doesn't think they need saving. I heard through mutual friends that you're in therapy now. I'm glad. I hope you're doing the work. I hope you're learning to love yourself instead of seeking that love through control of others. I don't hate you, Maya. I never could, but I also can't be part of your life anymore. I hope you understand. Take care of yourself. Ethan. Maya read the email 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she closed her laptop and sat in silence, feeling the weight of his words settle into her bones. He was right, about all of it. She opened her journal, the one she'd been writing in daily, the accounting of her patterns and progress, and wrote a response she would never send. Dear Ethan, you're right, about everything. I loved you, but my love was poisonous. I needed you to fill a void in myself that only I could fill, and I almost destroyed you in the process. I'm learning to be different, not for you, you're gone, and you should be, but for myself, and for whoever might come after you, if I ever get healthy enough to deserve that. I'm learning that love isn't control, that caring for someone means wanting them to flourish, even if that flourishing takes them away from you. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone go. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, profoundly sorry for what I did to you, for making you feel like you needed to disappear to survive, for every moment of your life that I made smaller, darker, harder. I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you're healing. I'm glad you chose yourself. And I swear to you, that I'm choosing myself now too. Not in the selfish way I did before, but in the way that makes me capable of genuine love. Someday. Goodbye, Ethan. Thank you for teaching me what I needed to learn, even though the lesson nearly destroyed us both. Maya. She closed the journal and looked around her apartment. The same space where David had planted evidence, where the police had searched, where she'd unraveled. But it felt different now, lighter somehow. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Reeves. Don't forget our session tomorrow. We're going to talk about forgiveness, of others and of yourself. Maya smiled, just a little. Forgiveness seemed impossible right now, a distant shore she couldn't imagine reaching. But 6 months ago, change had seemed impossible too. She was learning that impossible things took time. Epilogue. 1 year later, Maya stood in front of a group of strangers in a community center basement. "Hi, I'm Maya," she said, her voice steady, "and I'm here because I hurt someone I loved, not with my hands, but with my words, my actions, my need to control. I made his life so difficult that he had to fake his disappearance to get away from me." The group listened without judgment. They understood. They'd all hurt people they loved. They were all here trying to be better. For a long time, I blamed everyone else. His coworker who framed me, the detective who suspected me, even Ethan himself for leaving. But the truth is, I created the situation that made all of that possible. My behavior pushed someone to desperation. Maya paused, gathering courage. But I'm not that person anymore. Or, at least, I'm working every day not to be. I'm in therapy. I'm learning my triggers. I'm practicing healthy boundaries and communication. And most importantly, I'm learning to be alone without feeling like I'm disappearing. After the meeting, a young woman approached her. "Thank you for sharing," she said. "I've been where you were. It helps to hear someone else say it out loud." "It gets easier," Maya told her. "Not easy, but easier." She drove home through familiar streets, no longer searching every face for Ethan's. She'd stopped checking his social media months ago, stopped asking mutual friends how he was doing. She'd given him the space he'd needed from the beginning. In her apartment, she opened her laptop and looked at the document she'd been working on for months, a memoir of sorts, though she doubted she'd ever publish it, an accounting of everything she'd learned, written in the hope that maybe someone else might recognize themselves before it was too late. The title sat at the top of the page, "The Absence: How I Lost Someone by Holding Too Tight." She'd been writing about David Chen, about the elaborate plot he'd created to help Ethan escape, how wrong his methods were, but how right his instincts had been. Someone had needed to help Ethan, and Maya had made it impossible for Ethan to help himself. Her phone rang, an unknown number. For a moment, her heart leaped, old habits dying hard, but she silenced the hope. It wouldn't be Ethan. It never was. "Hello? Maya Rivera. This is Dr. Patricia Reeves. I know it's late, but I wanted to let you know something. I've been working with another client, someone who reminded me of your situation. With their permission, I recommended they read your blog posts about relationship patterns." Maya had started a blog 6 months ago, writing anonymously about her journey. She'd never expected anyone to actually read it. "They told me today that your words helped them recognize their own behavior before it went too far. They're getting help now, and I thought you should know that your honesty is making a difference." After they hung up, Maya sat in the quiet apartment and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for reconciliation with Ethan. That ship had sailed, and rightly so. But hope that her mistakes, her pain, her hard-won growth might help someone else avoid the same path. She returned to her computer and kept writing, the words flowing easier now. She wrote about the storage unit where Ethan had hidden, about the moment she'd read his notebook and understood the depth of his desperation, about the year of work it had taken to begin forgiving herself. And she wrote about the most important lesson, that love without respect for the other person's autonomy isn't love at all. It's possession. And possession, no matter how much you dress it up in romantic language, is just another word for control. The absence, Ethan's absence, had taught her more than his presence ever could. And Maya was finally, slowly, learning to fill her own emptiness, instead of demanding someone else do it for her. The end.